Monster Hunter World is Capcom's currently fastest selling game, clocking in about 11.7 million sales in total. 8.3 million of those copies were sold on PS4 and Xbox One since the title's release on the 26th of January. About 3.4 million were sold on the PC version, whose release date was on the 9th of August. The only two games that sold more in total were Resident Evil 5, released on 2009, which sold 12.15 million copies divided between 4 consoles and PC, thanks to the regular, gold and remastered version. The other game is Street Fighter 2, released in 1991, boasting 20.5 million copies sold. It was released on 6 different consoles in 9 different versions. In case you're wondering why I bring this up, it is to put a perspective on the impact that Monster Hunter World had on the year 2018 and on Capcom themselves, meaning that they will most definitely expand on the franchise more due to high sales and high demand. Now that we got this out of the way, let us get to the actual topic of the video. Monster Hunter World has a roster of 34 large monsters, 3 of those being subspecies. These 34 monsters do not include minions, which are classified as small monsters despite some of them being taller and larger than large monsters that act as bosses. Some of these creatures are quadrupedal, wingless lizards, fire-breathing wyverns, raptor-like creatures, brutish dinosaurs, dragons, harnessing the elements, and colossal entities capable of razing towns, settlements, and if rumors are to be believed, even countries to the ground. Out of those 34 monsters, 20 are new. 14 of those monsters were already in the roster of older games. We got some questionable returning monsters and a whole bunch of very popular monsters that did not return in the newest installment of Monster Hunter. Why is that? Let me explain the most likely reason. Some of you may know that Geocruise, the flagship monster of Monster Hunter Tri for the Wii, was once considered and even modeled for Monster Hunter World's prototype, but got scrapped in the final version because it was too difficult to fully implement. Some moves that made the cut are now seen in Giratodo's moveset. This can be seen as enough evidence that we won't see any Leviathan skeletons, since those might be too difficult to animate in the engine Monster Hunter World is running on. Now, there is the keyword, skeletons. It is safe to assume that we will not see any new types of skeletons like Leviathans, amphibians, Temnocerans, crabs, snake wyverns, fanged beasts, and some variants of flying wyverns and fanged wyverns like Tigrex, Nargacuga, Xenogra, and so on. All of those monsters and types use unique skeletons and postures that do not exist in Monster Hunter World. It just is not lucrative to add content like this as a free monthly update due to the additional high resource cost behind the task. In case you are wondering what a unique model and skeleton has to do with anything, let me elaborate real quick. There are a ton of games who reuse assets, simply palette swap existing enemies and use those to pad the content. Monster Hunter did this since Monster Hunter G, with its subspecies and later on rare species and deviants. How many times did you fight an enemy in Final Fantasy, Dragon Quest, or Breath of Fire, where you fought the exact same enemy multiple times, just coded in a different painting? This practice is used to save on cost and development time. Games with high polygon count and high graphics take way more time and resources to develop more and unique designs, skeletons and monsters than, for example, a 2D game. Since the release, we got 4 monsters added via updates, only 2 of those being new. Let us take a look at them. One of them, and also the first, is Devil Joe, which uses the brute wyvern skeleton, like Anjanath, Barth, Rado, and Uragan. Devil Joe is a popular monster, easy to implement since it uses an existing skeleton and since it was announced before the game even came out. It may have been used strategically to increase sales and pre-orders. Heck, I'd lie if I said I wasn't hyped. Devil Joe has been sort of a staple in the series since Monster Hunter Tri. Next monster we got was Kolfteroth. Kolfteroth is a little more difficult to see, but despite being another dragon, it used the same skeleton as Nergigante and Xenojiva, the Jagras skeleton. I call it the Jagras skeleton because Jagras is the first monster we encounter with this skeleton. This can be seen when slowing down, speeding up, or just by looking at some moves that are shared. Some monsters with same skeletons have drastically different moves. Best example would be Tigrex and Nargacuga. After Kolfteroth, we got Lunastra. Lunastra is basically a 99% copy of Teostra when it comes to looks. Incredibly easy to implement, since most of the work having to be done is moveset. Okay, and that was a quick one. Vanav's first and only appearance pre-world was in the second generation, namely Monster Hunter DOS, Freedom 2 and the G-Rank expansion Monster Hunter Freedom Unite. Last monster, which is Behemoth, is not a new monster per se. It is a new monster to the Monster Hunter franchise, true, but it is originally a monster from Final Fantasy, which we got through a collaboration with Final Fantasy XIV. It uses a Jaguar skeleton as well, and some of its moves are straight up amplified Nergigante moves. Have you noticed the parallels? Oh yeah, by the way, quick disclaimer. I know Behemoth is originally from the Bible, a beast from the Bible, and not from Final Fantasy. I just mean from video games. It's initially from more fantasy games and not from Monster Hunter itself. Yeah, that's it. None of those monsters use a unique skeleton, which makes it rather clear that we will not see a popular monster such as Nargacuga, Rajang, Mizutsune, Gormagala, Tigrex, etc. in Monster Hunter World at this time. The demand is incredibly large and people have been asking for those monsters since release and even earlier. Adding completely new monsters is taking up development time and resources that Capcom undoubtedly rather wants to use on a possible expansion or whatever they're planning next to release. We have got nothing but retextured, remodeled, pre-existing skeletons and arch-tempered, which are basically looped-up versions of already existing monsters that can be done in a single evening of texture editing as free content. That is exactly why, because it is free. It's not worth for Capcom to invest a lot of money and manpower to add completely new and complex monsters from scratch for us without gaining a lot from it, as stated earlier. I wouldn't do it either. What is the point? Would you buy Monster Hunter World if you haven't already gotten a proper reason before, just because a single monster was added that you liked in previous games? I highly doubt it. Capcom probably thinks in a similar way too. How I know? I don't. No one does. But instead of making clickbaity videos of monsters I know everyone wants to have in World so that you can click on them and then get disappointed by some other gremlin who lured you in because, well, you want those critters in front of your scope or under your hammer so that you can wear their skin and show it off to the Hoplas or Sisterly Fourth. I'd rather inform people as to why we most likely shouldn't hold our breaths for now. Does this mean we won't see any of those monsters in Monster Hunter anymore? No, that is not what it means. My theory is that we will get some new monster types in the future, but not in form of one monster per update, but rather a G-Rank expansion, where Capcom actually earns money for new content they worked hard on, with more new and returning monsters, new skeletons that they can use in future updates, and possibly a new area. I'd gladly pay for it. Also, if I see more shitty Ermagerd League videos by some goblin who acts as if Capcom themselves only told them to conveniently add the monsters that net the most clicks for a leak video, I will pour cold throat magma down my pee-hole. Some people consider new content as some sort of free refill, like at McDonald's, even though it is more akin to a free fry for your purchase of big fries every once in a while. Of course, getting more variety is always good. We need variety in our lives. That's why we play different game genres, eat different food each day, and why I cheat on my wife so frequently. We have too many Elder Dragons in this game, and while I know that Monster Hunter World is heavily Elder Dragon themed, seeing those exclusively will dampen our mood in the long run, just like when my wife finds out about my affairs. This video is obviously highly speculative, but I tried my best to explain as to why Capcom most likely won't drop an entire ice map, some new wolf furbait monster, and 10 of the most beloved and treasured monsters from older games overnight in a free update. Instead of hoping for new leaks, we should hope for a big expansion in the future that draws us in to play Monster Hunter World Ultimate or whatever the next expansion is going to be called for longer periods of time, as opposed to a single monster that makes us play for 1 hour, 2 hour, or at most a few days, and then we drop the game again. If you have any more questions, I'll be happy to answer those in the comments. If you dislike what I've said just because your cousin or some clickbait YouTuber said that Zenogre and Nargacuga were leaked for the 10th time this month alone, then you can gladly inhale my Lao Shan Shlong. But seriously, I really want to rejoin the world.